Boom.
Hey folks, John Cantera. I am the Double Broker Bounty Hunter. Welcome to the TikTok Diner, and with me is my co-host and dear friend Jeff Dickinson. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, John. How about yourself, sir?
Oh, I cannot complain, and even if I did, who the hell would listen?
Wouldn't be me.
No, absolutely not. But folks, I got to tell you, it is a great day. New show here. This is our premiere episode, and we're doing this here for the Freight Fraud Task Force. And for those of you who don't know, the Freight Fraud Task Force is a nonprofit that we've put together to try to help the industry from a grassroots level. No matter what area you touch of logistics and supply chain, you could be a factoring company, an insurance company, a shipper, a carrier, whatever. This is for you, because together is the only way that we're ever going to be able to defeat freight fraud. Most of you have seen my daily task force minute. So what I do want to do is I want to go ahead and start off with a task force minute, because I haven't done one for today yet. So I want to kind of roll that into this. So let's go ahead and drop the task force minute in there. For the Freight Fraud Task Force, it's time for the Task Force Minute with your host, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera. Thank you. Yes, I put in the sound effects myself. Give me a break, will you? Okay, for today's Task Force Minute, if you are one of those people who subscribe to FMCSA updates off of their platform, you got an email yesterday, and I've had maybe half a dozen people call me last night saying, hey, is this email legitimate? Folks, it is legitimate. If you got an email from FMCSA yesterday talking about the launch of MOTUS, that's MOTUS, that is a valid email. Those links are solid. You can go ahead and click to your heart's content. Basically, what it's telling you is that your service providers who do your BOC3s and stuff like that, they can go into MOTUS now and start setting up their profiles, so that once they start providing those services for you and updating your records at FMCSA, it's a seamless flow. Now, for anyone else who does all their own record updates within FMCSA for the registration department, you can start accessing MOTUS after the first of the year. Okay, so please check that email out if you got it. If not, go to the FMCSA website, read up on MOTUS. I'm sure I will do another piece about MOTUS between now and the end of the year to help get everybody up to speed. And that is your Task Force Minute. For the Freight Fraud Task Force, this has been another Task Force Minute. Please be sure to like and subscribe on all of our social media. Until next time, don't let scammers take you for a ride. Oh, sorry, that was my ventriloquism act. But so we've gotten through the Task Force Minute. We've got a lot of stuff for the task force that's coming up here on the streamer ticker that you see down at the bottom of the screen. Next week, next Thursday at 11:30 a.m., so right about exactly a week from now, we're going to be doing a very special live stream with Derek Bars, administrator at the FMCSA. He is going to be at the Transportation Club of Jacksonville for their week or their monthly luncheon. Now, as I recall, he was a member of that transportation club. So when he was nominated to this post, he told them, hey, as soon as I'm finally confirmed, I'll come down and talk to you all. So we have capitalized on that opportunity, and we're going to be able to sit down, myself and our good friend Dale Prax. We're going to have a nice fireside chat with Administrator Bars on a whole wide variety of issues that of great concern across the industry. We've already started hitting on a few. They are doing a massive crackdown on regulatory issues. I don't know if anyone has seen this, but they have sent, DOT has sent a letter to the state of Minnesota back on Monday, and telling Minnesota that they have over 2,100 non-domicile CDLs, and every last one of them must be audited to make sure that they were issued within regulation. And if they don't do it, then DOT is going to pull $90 million in highway funding from Minnesota, as well as revoke Minnesota's ability to issue CDLs. Well, I think I can say, Jeff, that they ain't screwing around anymore.
No.
Seems like the government is actually stepping up and doing their job.
Definitely all the way. But, as we've discussed in the past with many people, it's not just the government that has to take a stand. We're on the front lines every single day, John. You know it as well as I. And it's up to us to enforce it, in the back room, sort of speaking. They can do this stuff on the road and what's traveling, what's moving, but we also have to be, cognizant and diligent of what we do behind the scenes, especially like at the warehouse when you're looking at cybersecurity. That's where I start first. All orders come inbound through the web, right? When you go into vendors and they're sending it to shippers, everything's getting transmitted through the net. And that's where cybersecurity is so beneficial, to find those loopholes of where the bad guys can infiltrate a system and steal those type of orders. And it comes down to, the carriers that you're using, TMS, all different kinds of stuff that they can get into. So, that would be like my number one thing to start off first. If you're a shipper, is to dig into your system and start looking at the potentiality of, stealing identities, stealing your information, your data, and everything else that you transmit on the net. And so, we've got to do a lot of things, John, for sure.
Yeah, there's so much that we've been trying to do as the task force. We haven't even had our official website launch yet, which is coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, it's scheduled for the 20th. Has that changed, Jeff?
Nope. It is going to happen on the 20th for sure.
So what we're looking to do is not next week, because we got the bars interview next week, but the week after on this program, we plan to have the entire executive team of the task force on to celebrate the launch of the website. It'll also be our holiday special, because I seriously doubt we're going to be doing this on Christmas Day.
No, that ain't happening.
No. I did I did a coffee show with the Logistics Lounge on Thanksgiving morning. Yeah, my wife was not very happy about that.
Yeah, not a good way to get those points, John.
No. I get points plenty of other ways, but I lost a couple that day. Well, hey, I thought she was still in bed. It was only going to be a half an hour. Turned out to be an hour and a half. And anyway, love the guys from the Logistics Lounge. They've been huge supporters of our program.
Absolutely.
But anyway, the whole thing that we're trying to do here today is, one, we're trying to introduce this new show. Two, we want to make sure we get a public forum out there for people to communicate with us here at the task force. So we are open to any comments, questions that anyone may have at this point. So feel free to start shooting them our way. Now, I can see that because of some streaming issues, we're only streaming live in two places right now. That's on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you are on our Freight Fraud Task Force group on LinkedIn and you have some questions about how we're doing things and questions about what we're doing, please go ahead, go into the comments, ask away. We are here to answer those questions for you today. We are looking at a couple of things. We mentioned the website's going up on the 20th. That is the public facing portion. Come the start of the year, we are going to be launching a members only section behind a paywall. And the reason why we do this is because, we talk about general fraud trends in programs like this and in Task Force Minute and all that other stuff. Very public information. What we don't want to do is we don't want information to get out to potential bad guys, to give them a roadmap as to how we do the work that we do. We don't want them to know how we reverse engineer scams to figure out how they're doing it, and then the defenses that we develop to try to stop those. We don't want the bad guys knowing that. So we will never talk about those kinds of things on this program because it's part of our public facing portion. We just talk about general trends here. We'll talk about publicly known defenses. I think the biggest threat that's going on right now that I've harped on a couple of times on Task Force Minute is email hacking. Carriers are getting absolutely blown away by email hacking. And if you haven't done so yet, and you are a motor carrier, you live off of Gmail or whatever, please, for the love of all things holy, make sure you put into place a multi-factor authentication into your email. By doing that, now it's not 100% flawless, guarantees you won't get hacked, but it makes you much harder to hack. And in doing so, it makes you less likely a target for the bad guys. Because what the bad guys are doing is they are using all this sophisticated tech. And this is the same tech they use to hack systems such as DOT, other government agencies, Fortune 500 companies, etc. They're going after motor carriers. And, motor carriers, we're not very sophisticated. I know I don't have a multi-million-dollar firewall system that protects my email, but if you put into place certain protections like a multi-factor authentication, then it makes you a hard target. And being a hard target is something that scammers don't want to have to deal with. There are tons of soft and easy targets out there. So if they try to probe your email to see if they can get in and they encounter any resistance, they're going to leave you alone and they're going to move on to the next guy until they can finally get into somebody and then start stealing their information. So the moral of that story, folks, is please, 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 please make sure you put into place a multi-factor authentication into your email. I would even do it in your personal email. It's just good practice for people to do at this point. Scammers are everywhere. I don't care what industry you're in. They're out there everywhere, and they're trying to pull one over on all of us at all times. You just have to be ready for it. I mean,
yes, every day.
I'm fairly, forgive me here. I'm somewhat famous for doing this fraud prevention stuff. Yet a year ago, I got. I want to be open and honest with everybody here, okay? Because I'm human. Now, I've been living in my place for about 3 years now, and I should have put that on silent. I've been living in my place for about 3 years now. I've been renting. And I get a phone call about a year ago from someone claiming to be the power company. And on my phone, it said it was the power company. And also, so I was like, answer it and say, okay, what's up? Well, sir, you never paid your deposit for your service. So we need to go ahead and get that squared away or we have to turn your power off. I'm like, what the holy hell? And it was the middle of summer, like one of the hottest days of the summer. And I live in Florida, so it's freaking hot, because I'm originally from up in the mid-Atlantic area where Jeff's at, so I'm used to having 4 seasons. Florida's a little hot for me, but that's okay. So I'm like, oh my God, my wife's going to kill me if the power gets shut off. And I went into panic mode. And that's what these scammers are trying to do. They're trying to put you into panic mode. Because once they get you into panic mode, then you stop thinking rationally. It cost me $950. And after I paid that $950, I'm on the phone with them, and they transfer me to a manager and said, Mr. Cantera, I apologize, but the information you got before is wrong. It's not $950. It's $2,000. I was like, what do you mean $2,000? And at that point, I hung up the phone. And then I realized, oh, motherfucker, they just took me for a ride.
Yeah.
And I called my bank, tried to get everything squared away. No, it was too late. I lost it. So people, even the best of us can be gullible about certain things from time to time. Jeff, I've been talking this whole time, man. Contribute.
I know. I'm just listening. It's it's true, and a lot of a lot of people are in disbelief, but I say it wholeheartedly. And we've talked about this, John, for some time, as well as with other friends and compadres. I haven't faced any theft, double brokering, or fraud in 45 years. So I must be doing something right. A lot of people are like, yeah, sure, Jeff, blah, 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 blah. But I'm being honest, and the gap that I see is that shippers and brokers and carriers, they really don't have any training in place. And when I say training, like SOPs and work instructions and process improvement plans, to document the correct way of doing something and then mirroring that image or that document in all of their facilities down the road. So everybody is doing the same thing. One of the biggest harms that I saw that happened, and I don't have the data on this, but when the insurance companies started saying that carriers aren't allowed on the dock to count their freight, be held accountable, when you look at the SLCs and all of that, at that time, I wonder how much fraud escalated at the time that was implemented, because when you can't see them, you can't talk to them, you don't have that emotional intelligence of looking at that driver in the face and having a discussion with them, because anybody can tell, if somebody's bullshitting you or they're just not right, something's missing on that. And also, when you have a pre-trip inspection, it gives you time. You can tell whether the driver's getting nervous. Like, man, they're spending a lot of time around my cab. They don't want that kind of stuff, and when we implemented that, like myself, you've got time down, you've got communication that's right then and there. You talk to the dispatcher or the rep, whomever you're doing business with, and you have that communication up front before any freight moves. With speed, you lose diligence as far as monitoring and taking the proper steps in order to eliminate or minimize greatly fraud possibilities. And too much information is given out when you're giving a load away or dispatching, because there's too many parties and you're giving it to too many people. You should have like one contact. And I say that even on high risk, high value, where I make it clear, in the transportation agreement under responsibilities and expectations that concerns the agreement itself, especially when you're moving high value, who you are going to talk to, and the only person that's going to know what is going on. Like, I want direct contact with the driver, nobody else. So that driver, if he hears like, hey, you know what, you need to go this direction. Well, if it didn't come from me, then he ain't going to go down that route. Period. End of discussion. We've lost that touch, John. We've lost that communication and that relationship with the driver. A long time ago, I knew all the drivers. Drivers couldn't wait to come in and talk to me. I had coffee for them, lunch on Fridays. They were looking forward to that experience. Talked about their families, what's working for them in their job. So I get a better understanding of how they operate. I'm not on the road, doing their job. And I went for a ride in one of their on their routes because I wanted to see what a driver goes through daily. It's a lot of bullshit out there, especially in New York and New Jersey. Let me tell you, you can drive in those two states. You can drive anywhere in the freaking world, right? But it gives you that better perspective. So I have the perspective on the outside as well as the perspective from the inside working out. And it's missing. It's missing today. There's too much focus on speed, a lack of diligence and margins, money. That they want that low rate. They just want to move that freight and be on with it. But You know, when you look at that insurance, when they don't allow them, I wonder how much, like I'll go back to how much did freight fraud escalate from that point? You know, and was it worth it for the savings for the shipper for implementing that insurance policy that nobody goes on the dock, so there's no incidents and everything? What are they paying on the backside when their stuff gets stolen, right? I think it's a lot more than what they're trying to save, you know, operationally. And one of the reasons why they did that, because I'll be frank, probably the shipper didn't have any kind of work instruction or SOP as to how they operate and function on the dock when a driver comes in. And that's why they had injuries. That's why they had problems on the dock, because they didn't make it clear enough, you know. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I think that was what made my job a lot easier. And people are like, but Jeff, you know, you were going back into the Stone Age, you know, when you started, you know, you've got digitalization out there, you know, the way that we conduct business changed. Well, I just didn't sit back there when the pyramids were built, so to speak. And I had to go with technology as technologies was created and implemented and updated throughout the years. I just didn't sit in one hole and saying, that's all I'm going to do. And if you're not doing it out there, you're losing out. You're going to be left behind. Every day you got to learn something new. And I wholeheartedly believe in this, John, that's what's missing in here. Improper training, not enough due diligence on doing the prospecting and doing the procurement side and doing the right things. It's just rush to judgment, get that damn freight moving at any cost, and it's wrong.
You know, I track with you 100% on that. In my days running warehouses, and I've spent quite a bit of my career doing that in the Savannah area. I've never had stolen cargo, never had a double brokered cargo, never had any of that stuff. And I agree, it's about relationships. Like you, I had a coffee bar right inside the warehouse door, right inside the trucker door. It wasn't every Friday that I had lunch for him, but usually once a month I had something for him. We were even cooking burgers at one point.
Yeah.
You know, it was the nice little things because the drivers enjoyed showing up. And I used to see the same drivers almost every single day.
Absolutely.
Now, but even though I saw them every single day, our procedure was we took a photocopy of their driver's license, we stapled it to our copy of the BOL, and that was part of our security procedures. And that was followed to a T. It didn't matter if I scanned his driver's license 5 days a week. It happened 5 days a week without fail. Yeah. We always knew who had it. And as technology continued to evolve, the warehouse had gone from a manual process to then having a WMS implemented by the company we worked for. We implemented the WMS almost overnight. Yep. And it was a flawless transition. And all my people adapted to the tech because we spent the time and energy. We spent 4 hours going over the tech the night before, making sure everyone understood what they were supposed to do, how it was supposed to be done, et cetera, et cetera. And it worked flawlessly. You know, it's just a matter of taking the time and the energy to do it right.
Correct.
And you're absolutely right. It doesn't exist today. And I get it. You can get to a small shipper, and a small shipper can go out and look at the side of a truck today. They've got a little bit of time. They can take the 30 seconds it takes to take a look at the side of the truck. Okay, that's the carrier that's supposed to be here. Okay, that's all well and good. But you look at someplace like Walmart, Aldi, some of these others with the massive distribution centers that are moving massive amounts of freight in a very short period of time. They're going to sit there and tell you, we do not have the time to go and have somebody go out and look at the side of the truck every time they go to load it. We just don't have it. So now we got to figure out, how do we fill that gap? How do we make that happen? I know of a couple tech solutions that are out there that are trying to do that. They're working to develop that technology to help fill that gap to minimize how much somebody has to physically go out and look. But I got to tell you, there's no substitute for going out and looking. How many times have we seen videos of guys writing down new DOT numbers on the side of their truck on a blank decal? How many times do we see that every week? I mean, it's insane. It's at the point now where I've stopped recommending to my clients to go and check the side of the truck. I now tell them to go open up the driver's door and check the VIN number inside the driver door jamb.
Yeah, no, I get it. When I implemented the WMS, the TMS, the YMS, at the big facilities, the enterprises, they got guards. They got guards at the gates, and the carriers are supposed to check in. Well, hello, the door's right there at the guard gate where the guard can check it in so they know who's coming in for what lane or anything. Again, building that relationship and that communication between the guard gate and the shipping office of who's coming in and who's going out. And they can look at the MC, the DOT number. They can ask for the driver's license. They can do all that kind of stuff. They can get the trailer number. They can give you the parking spot number, T21 in the back of the warehouse or whatever. So they know that, right? How many times does that trailer get viewed? You got the guard gate, number one. Number two, you got a yard horse out there. You got a yard horse driver that has to pick the trailer up and dump it into the dock, right? So you're going to get another visual on the trailer and whose name is on the trailer. And then again, are you going to take a trailer that's been dumped in the yard that maybe the carrier didn't really inspect it? The driver just came in because he was ticked off, would have picked up a driver and just brought it to the shipper and didn't look it over. Well, guess what? The yard horse driver can take a look at the trailer and see there's a hole in the top or the lights are out and all that kind of stuff. And they could get it swapped out. Hey, you know what? I've got T12345 trailer from ABC carrier. It's got a hole in it. Hey, shipping office, can you make a call to them and tell them to get rid of that trailer and drop in another one? I mean, we did this all the time. There's so many different touch points on this that I just don't get it why all these things happen. Those skipping those things. A freaking pre-trip takes 15 minutes. Eight touch points on a trailer in the cab. You're not going to break down the engine and all that kind of stuff, but it's just visuals that you can. It doesn't take time to take a look at that, and then all the safety mechanisms, like what I used to do real quick, right after the trailer was parked in. Part of my responsibilities and request and expectations on the transportation agreement, when that trailer hits that door, chocks on the rear wheels, fifth wheel lock, right, and then airline locks on it, and then you put a cone in front of it. If there's a cone in front of the trailer, that means that the trailer's being worked. That means there's a guy in a forklift that's going in and out. You got to write these kind of stuff down on a transportation agreement. There's so many things that people don't even think about. Safety is a big thing. Fraud is a big thing. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time to put these things in it if you know what you're talking about and you understand that and the impact it has. And don't say, oh, that's never going to happen to me. It never has in the past, until it does, until a catastrophic event happens, and then you get kicked in the ass. And you think you're saving money and it's going to be a door closing event. Take the extra time and the steps. You're going to build a better rapport with the shipper. It's going to show responsibility on your side, responsibility on their side, and you're going to build a long lasting relationship. Just don't ignore that kind of stuff. When you're going out, you're prospecting, you're talking to these shippers and you land them, tell them what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, and how it's beneficial for everybody involved. It's not just me as a broker. It's for you, the shipper. It's for you, the carrier, because it's a trifecta. It's a relationship building, because I want to build a long-term business partnership with you as well as my carrier. I want to respect my carrier. I want my carrier to respect me. Shipper, open up your freaking bathroom doors and let the drivers go in there. You disrespect them, they're going to disrespect you. You think your parking lot out there is going to clean all the time? They'll dump shit all over that. All that kind of stuff, because they have no respect. Build that respect. Respect is missing in this industry as well. I believe
and that respect's a two-way street. That is absolutely a two-way street. As I hear you talk, Yeah, I know you've worked for some large companies in the past, and I keep flipping back to one of the largest that exist in this industry, Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay, now let me explain why. I deal a lot with Amazon double broker claims. I get carriers calling me all the time who get screwed over on these double brokered Amazon loads, and I still am able to help them get paid. So if you have an issue, hit me up. Um, I was just dealing with a case just yesterday, actually. Amazon, when you go to pick up a trailer from them, you get a what they call a VRID number. That's basically the load number. And then you go to their automated gate, which is usually unmanned. You punch in that number on the console, and that checks you in.
Mm.
Now, there are cameras, so your truck gets photographed and all that as you go in. You make the pickup, and then you go ahead, you pull out, and you got to do the same thing when you drop the trailer off at another Amazon facility, wherever you're going. Not a human soul makes contact with the driver through the entire process. Not a single soul. So you wonder why all these claims happen at Amazon versus like one of your places, Jeff. You know, there's no contact, there's no interaction, there's no development of that trust. There's absolutely nothing, which is why Amazon gets double brokered all the time.
Well, let's talk about UPS, John. You know, they had a guy at the gate. Then in Texas, you know, and the guy was only driving for 2 weeks. You know, they double brokered that, and they gave it to another one. And you know what happened with how many people that died on that? And you had a freaking guard there that checked in the freaking thing. You know, it's like it's a lack of focus. It's a lack of understanding. You're not just hiring a body to sit in the freaking thing. I'm not going to say what I want to say and just do the job, to take up 8 hours a day, man. You're there to do a specific job. And whether or not they had a work instruction that was built for that guard and what he had to look for, they didn't have one. You know, it's like if I go out there and I have brokers, show me your work instruction for process improvement plans when you prosper a carrier and what their responsibilities are supposed to do, and are you transparent with your shipper as far as a service provider of why you do the things you do and what you can expect when my carrier bumps your door. Nobody has it. Nobody freaking has that kind of stuff, and it's so imperative to write these work instructions and this process improvement plans and SOPs and mirror it. If you're a large broker and you have facilities all over, create that best practice and run with it. It's going to save you money. It's going to build better relationships with your shippers. You're not going to be run of the mill. You know, you want to separate yourself. You want to have that differentiator that nobody else has, because your brand, your image, and your reputation is in every single shipment that you ship, as well as the carriers, as well as the shippers. And if anything goes wrong, you're going to be tied to that. And if that carrier goes out there and misses a pre-trip or whatever happens, he kills a family of 4. Do you want that on your fucking shoulders? Do you want to carry that around with you the rest of your life because you're the one that procured that carrier and put him in place? Yet you didn't take the extra steps to ensure that that carrier was who he or she was, and whether that was the right company in there. You need touch points. You need that human element of making sure that it is who you say it is. You're here, they're there, you know. Make sure they understand that if they're going to do business with you, this is what you expect, and you're doing it to save their asses. You know, it's not rocket science. It's just common sense, and it's unfortunate. And I believe this, the way that the fraudulent activities exploded the way they did, because they just lost the focus. They didn't care, you know. Money over process. I mean, it's I don't know. It's ridiculous.
I'm really hoping that in 2026 we're going to see that swing back around the other way. I think the industry is starting to finally realize that trying to save a buck here is costing them thousands elsewhere. It's been a nightmare.
Well, you know what? Listen, I've been in that situation before, where I had the CEO, the COO, the president putting that downwardly pressure on it. Save money, put more money back to the bottom line, do whatever. That's what I hired you to do and everything. Well, you can push back up. Good leaders push back up, and they explain the reason why. Their push is the wrong way to do it. I've done it plenty of times, and got into massive freaking fights and stuff like that. But you have to make them understand. I'm not going to go with the low. I'm not going to go to high, but I'm going to find a nice medium, and then I'm going to build that procurement so that I have my first selection, and then a secondary and a tertiary backup on that one. And they're all vetted. I've talked to them. I know the reps. The reps have come in. They spent some time with me. I know I've asked other people, asked other shippers, have you used them? All this, it's not a lot of work. If you know what you're doing, it's not a lot of work. It's what you get. That's what they pay you to do your job and make sure that you're protecting all involved.
Yeah. I want to go ahead and switch gears for a minute, because we've been hitting hard the work procedures, SOPs and stuff, because it is absolutely vital.
Mm-hmm.
But that really isn't just at the warehouse level or the shipper level or anything like that. This is at every level. Yes. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. Having been a carrier myself, I know that when I go and I jump into the truck and I'm trying to do stuff, I have my own mental checklist of all the things that I have to do. I put that mental checklist in a binder, and I put that in all of my trucks. And I had 10 box trucks. Every single truck in my fleet had this checklist in there that everyone had to do every single day. And they had to drop it off at the office when they dropped the truck at the end of the day, just to show that they did it. And if they pencil whipped it, well, there might've been some of that going on, but I tried to do the best I can to make sure I was making smart hiring decisions, et cetera, et cetera. But it's going through the process, because if you do it 2-3 times in a row, you start doing it all the time automatically. You build up the habit. And that's all it is building up good habits. And good habits actually will help filter fraud out of the industry faster than most people can possibly understand. So if you have a good habit of protecting your email communications, you have a good habit of making sure that if you're a carrier, you booked a load with a broker, all of it was done over email, you stopped, you got the rate confirmation, you picked up the phone and called the guy just to verify. These little things make all the difference in the world. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, because it's all about that. Gotta move. You gotta stop. 30 seconds is not going to make you any more late or early for a pickup. Just do it. And it's not just that, it's communication too.
Oh yeah.
I was not on a rant. I'm sorry.
No. I get into those things too because I'm so passionate. I've been passionate like this for 45 years. Just imagine 25, 30 years off me, what kind of an animal I was back then, man. I was pushy. Run your business like a ISO audit. An ISO in layman term is do what you say what you do, and document it. And take that best practice and mirror image it across all your facilities, so that if I took John out of Jacksonville, Florida, and I put him in Twin Cities, Minnesota, and I put him at the desk, he would feel like he's in Jacksonville, because everything is mirror image. You got the best practices by due diligence that you're going to run that. I've worked on the broker side. I've worked on the shipper side. I worked for Snyder National. I know the carrier side, the intermodal side, all this. And yes, John, it's when you understand how the mechanisms of logistics, and you've seen it in my post, how they're intertwined, intermingled, and how they all have to be in sync to make things work. It's difficult. And when you don't understand those mechanisms and how they affect each other, it affects your business. It affects your knowledge. And knowledge is key in your understanding of how these particular areas within the logistics industry work. It puts you in a better place to help you find either the hidden bank opportunities or the loopholes and the gaps in a specific area. You know, when I worked at Ford Motor Company, and you could look at my profile as well. Some people go into a position to administer whatever has been created by somebody else. I went in there and ripped everything up and started from scratch. Right, I built it the way that I wanted to, and I got like really into this, where I asked carriers, if you want to make as many millions of dollars that I'm going to potentially give you, I want your drivers to bring in a computer with a scanner, and you are going to scan every single box that goes into your freaking truck. And they did it. They did it because I wanted accountability for every single box. And we shipped out a shitload of parts. You know, I worked in the second largest Ford distribution center in the country. And I'll tell you, we were hot and heavy in every single mode. And I'd be damned if something went out that I didn't know that was going on. And I had the best team on the inbound and the outbound and the claims and all of that. And you have to do that. It's like hire freaking people that are much smarter than you, because that comes right back on you as a leader, as a manager. And you've got to set the example for them to follow. If you have no example, how are your people going to contribute in the right way and do the right things? You know, just don't sit them in a fucking seat and give them a phone and a thing and say, go do your job. What's my job? Just make phone calls, you know, bring some business in. No, it's more about understanding. You know, I can't say it any harder than that, but you know, there's a lot of things missing.
I've had a lot of people actually ask me over the last 6 months, you know, how do I know all of this different stuff? How have people like you and I seen how these scams develop, how they intertwine, and how do we develop our defenses against them? And what a lot of people don't realize is the breadth of experience that some people have is really the key. You know, you mentioned it earlier. You've seen logistics in almost every form that can exist since the days of the pyramids. So, I mean, you've moved things by mule. You've moved it by truck. I mean, you've done everything, and that's not hyperbole. So, yeah, I like to say I've been the same way. I've done the maritime thing. I've done retail distribution, manufacturing logistics, general warehousing. I was a broker for a year. I was a carrier for 3 years. I've been dispatching now for 5 years last month.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it all. And when you have that kind of perspective and have the ability to open up to try to empathize with what other people are going through at a given moment in time, you can actually see how these scams are unfolding. You can see where the gaps are, almost like a diagram. I can kind of see where the hole is, where the scammer's trying to thread a needle to sew in dissent, to sew in confusion, and to make people question, are they doing the right thing? And then, then everyone defaults to, okay, take care of number one. I got to make sure I take care of myself. And it's not always just taking care of yourself, guys. As an industry, we have to step up together. Correct. We have to do this together as an industry, you know, and I think we've got brokers on board now. All brokers out there are trying to figure out new defenses. Now, if we all got on the same page about our defenses, I think we'd have a winning formula. But some people are still like, hey, you know what? This is my program. I don't share my program. Why not? I mean, I saw a post on LinkedIn about a week ago, and it was regarding ELP, the English language requirements that are out there, and a sign on the door of the shipper says, if you do not speak English, you will not get loaded. Now, stop and think for a second. If they don't understand the English language, if they can't speak English, how are you certain they can read it? Somebody please explain that to me. Somebody wasted their time and energy to do that. Come on. When the guy walks up to the window, if he can't speak English, then don't load him. End of story. Jesus.
But you know something? Scams just don't happen in trucks and the movement of freight. It's internalized. So, you know, it's like when I ran a few warehouses in DCs, you know, I was never in my office. I was on the floor. I was walking around. I wanted to know everything, every little thing. And I listened with intent of what was going on. I caught a few. I caught a few before it happened, because I listened, and things can start from inside. You know, there's like, you hear inside job. Yeah, that's very possible. You know, when carriers come in, drivers come in, they start communicating with dock workers. You know, I always said this, John, and I believe in it so hard. Desperate people do desperate things in desperate times, and we're in desperate times. We've been in desperate times for 3 years now. You know, and if somebody happens to get past, you know, several $1,000s under the desk and saying, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be in the area. You know, I'd love you. You know, if you could, would you want to work with me on doing this and set it up?" You know, I mean, I don't give a shit what anybody says, because I know this is a fact. Every fraudulent activity starts with a shipper, and I'm not downplaying a shipper. It's just the fact that without a shipper, without a box, you're not going to have fraud. They're the instigators. The first point of giving that shipment to somebody, whether it's an asset base or a parcel or a broker or a freight forwarder or an NVOCC, they start that process when they make that call, right? And then the trickle down effect, and then the broker makes that call, and then the carrier makes that call, and it just continues the process all the way down. And it's those gaps that are missed. You know, it's a lot more than just taking a box and shipping it and getting out the door. There's so many other processes that have to take place. Logistic mechanism, a process before you move that box. It's just not move the box. Call this carrier, get it out the door. So many different steps in there, you know, that they just miss. They just miss.
I think you hit the nail on what's probably the most emerging threat that may exist, and that is the inside job. I think we are starting to see an overt move from the subterfuge of impersonation to the inside job model when it comes to fraud. And let me qualify that. I look at groups like the Mexican cartels operating in the Southwest. You know, clearly they have agent provocateurs that are in the United States that are trying to set up different routes, et cetera, et cetera. So clearly there are going to be bad guys who walk up to a good guy who's struggling and say, "Hey, look, I know you guys ship a lot of electronics. Just on Thursday morning, give me the trailer number of just one of them. That's all. And here's $5,000 for your trouble." Okay, and that could be all the guy knows and all the guy ends up doing. But that inside job starts the whole process. It's happening now in your area. We are seeing a huge spike in organized crime, the old mafiosos getting into the freight fraud game. That's been a new spike in the last quarter, according to CargoNet. So there is a lot of things going on, and I believe that the subterfuge is still definitely happening. Oh, it's absolutely still happening. You know, the Eastern Europeans, that's what they got. They don't have a lot of people here in the U.S. doing all the, hey, I'll slip you this under the table. But the cartels and the mafia, they do. They got people that can hand cash off in a heartbeat. So if you are a shipper or you run a warehouse, be conscious about what's going on around your warehouse. Be conscious about your employees. Be conscious about their emotional and financial states. Know if somebody could potentially be vulnerable and monitor. You don't need to pry, but monitor, because these are potential pressure points where your operation can break. It can happen. Oh, by the way, it is happening. So watch out. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like I said, there are ways to implement process improvement plans, and the first step is writing a work instruction for a specific area of the organization, and then you do cross training. You tell the person, write your job. What do you do? Tell me your position. Just because I wrote the JD to hire you, to put you in that, let me see how much you know about this and what you're doing to make that role in that position better than what it was when I explained it to you on paper. Then put them to task. What I used to do, I had my inbound specialists write their own job requirement all the way down to keystrokes. Long process. What do you do when this happens? What do you do with that? And then that was for my inbound specialist. And I gave that work instruction to my outbound specialist who never did the job. And I said, do it. If it's written correctly, anybody out there that has worked a computer, whatever, would be able to follow this to a T. And now you start finding the gaps in it. That's how you do process by elimination of where the issues and the slack is happening in a position, because what you think that person is doing in that role, they really aren't doing it. If that makes sense. And
it doesn't matter.
There's areas that you need more depth in it, where it's lacking, where they need more training. You thought you trained them. You thought you did this. But here's the outcome of all that work that you put into this. That person can't do it. Why?
I've always treated my employees as family, because at the end of the day, my name, my reputation depends on how they respond, and I want them to care about it. So I treat them like family. Mm-hmm. And that's what managers and owners need to be doing all the way up and down the chain. They really do. I love the fact that you go out there on the warehouse floor and you're making your presence known. You're taking part in it. You're actively providing support. I used to pull orders in the warehouses that I run. And then after everyone went home at the end of the day, I would go do my cycle counts at that point when the warehouse is completely empty. Oh, and by the way, a truck would pull up. He was 30 minutes late after we closed. And he's sitting there, oh, man, I wish I'd gotten here on time. Don't worry, buddy. What's your load number? And I would pull the damn load for him to get him out, because I know how valuable a trucker's time is. That's going above and beyond. Yeah. I'm sorry. If you are a operational manager at the warehouse level or at the shipper level, that is what you should be doing. You should be out there. You should be, if you're sitting behind your desk all day long, you're wrong. Because so much could be happening and you would never have a clue. But you know what? Enough about preaching about how I think people should do their jobs. The fact is, with solid processes, we can stop fraud. But it's about having solid processes that work. You have to evaluate it constantly and tweak it as necessary. But that is an absolute must.
Yeah, and you can't manage something that you've never done. You truly can't, and I wouldn't ask somebody to do something if I hadn't done it. I started out sweeping floors, picking orders, stocking shelves, implementing RFID, picked the light, loaded thousands of trucks by forklift and by hand. I used to back in the day, we wore clean shirts and a tie. Yes, we did back then. And I brought a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and sneakers. And at the end of the month, I was in that trailer with my troops loading, because they're like, wow, he's in there. And then my boss was also in there too. That's the way we ran it. You know,
You had the Pharaoh standing behind you while you were pulling that stone block across onto the truck.
Yeah. Bill Robinson was the heavy lifter back then when we built it. But seriously, I would never ask somebody to do something that I didn't do, because, like I said, you have to understand the process and the operations in order to manage it. How can you manage a logistics operation if you never did that? Right? You have to know that stuff. You have to know where the gaps are. You have to understand that. It's just like, I could walk into any warehouse and I guarantee you I could pull something out that would be bad in there, because people get relaxed in their position. They get that tunnel vision, not the big picture, and they don't think of the possibilities of things happening until you get a second set of eyes. It's like OSHA, right? OSHA can go into any warehouse at any given time without an appointment and do an inspection. How well is your warehouse organized? That if a OSHA inspector came in and did an inspection on it, would you pass with high colors? I mean, clean 5S. That's Kaizen 5S, Kaizen 6S. I was all certified and all that kind of stuff. It's just like house cleaning. Would you keep your house where you live the same way as the warehouse? I don't know. That's the thing. Cleanliness is safety. It stops fraud. It stops a lot of stuff, and people just don't get that because they've never been in a freaking warehouse. They don't understand how those mechanisms. And if they did, they would learn so much damn stuff. They would totally understand where those gaps are and those loopholes that they could fill. It's difficult. It's difficult at best.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our hour, Jeff. You got any final thoughts for our premiere here?
Well, you know what? We have a lot to discuss. When we have the website launch on the 20th, we have the member, non-member facing part of it, and then we have the paywall. But I created 25 topics for our Webinar Academy Learning Center, which has over 145 webinars that I created on many different topics on there, where we're going to be bringing in subject matter experts in those specific areas, and they're vast. We'll be covering cross-border. We've got some really good people who are going to be the administrator, if you will, of the podcast, because they know it better than anybody else, to help those people who want to learn about the cross-border, all different things when it comes to legalities and transportation agreements and security, cybersecurity, deep fake, you name it. I got that covered. And it's going to be big. That's why it's taken us a long time to put this together, because we believe in making sure that we have all of our bases covered. We just didn't want to throw something together to get it out there and get a very negative response on it. I think a lot of people are going to really like what we put together. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope people will continue to follow us. I think we've got about 1,400 followers right now. I think it's going to explode and get even deeper and more followers than what we have right now, because there's so many people involved, John, as you well know. We're I would say over 400 years of experience in depth in all areas, even cybersecurity and all of that, like I mentioned. So stay tuned. It will be worth your while. And also, I got another thing going on too, which is the Freight Fraud Summit, where we're going to have a summit coming up where I partnered with a very well-known lawyer who's the president of the Transportation Loss Prevention and Security Association, which used to be part of the ATA, the American Trucking Association. I'm sure everybody knows about them. And then also with USI Insurance Services, which is the fourth largest broker insurance company out there at $2.8 billion with over 400 offices throughout the United States. They are global. I have a partnership with the vice president of transportation and logistics. So big things are going to start moving forward. It's a passion of mine. Like I said, I've been in the industry for 45 years. I think I did my job. I have my own business as well, which is RGTX Logistics Solutions. I don't move all freight, and I surely don't move them fast because we want to take care of our shippers and make sure they're protected. So yeah, that's it. So I appreciate it. I think this was a good show coming out of the gate, but we're going to have many more, John.
Fantastic. I've got a couple program notes I need to close with. First off, remember next week is our interview with FMCSA Administrator Derek Bars at the Transportation Club of Jacksonville's monthly luncheon. I know yesterday they released 20 tickets to the public to attend the event. You need to go to the TC Jacks website to do that. They may be sold out by now. I'm not certain. I haven't checked on that. But I know that is a very hot ticket. We will be live streaming that. If you're watching this live right now, you will be able to see the live stream when we do this next week. So be watching for that. We will be doing this show every week on Thursdays, noon Eastern time, except next week because of the Bars interview. So please make sure you tune in. Folks, we're going to go ahead and leave the check on the table for you to take care of. Please make sure you tip your server, and we'll see you again the next time you're at the TikTok Diner. Catch you next time.
Have a good week.